So we just did a segment a few days ago where we talked about like how Todd was responding to the feedback from Shattered Space and the DLC and everything, how he was trying to learn from it theoretically, and was like, you know what, maybe we shouldn't have given rovers for free ahead of time. Maybe that should have been part of the package and things like I'm glad that they're at least talking about it. I appreciated the free content update, but I don't think that would have magically fixed it because the expansion itself was just boring and lackluster. So adding in a buggy that doesn't have anything to do with anything would not have magically fixed it. But in response to that little video and segment that we did, I've gotten a handful of messages, some of them from you guys in chat today, asking like what I think all of this says about the Elder Scrolls 6. And it's a good question, an important question, very important question. But I don't think any of this tells us a lot. What does tell me a lot, again, is this talk from Will Shen that we looked at during that segment of the stream. Because his information is not one of these guys that worked at BGS a decade ago and then has some passing opinion on how things work or worked back in 2014 or 15 before Fallout 4. No, Will Shen worked at BGS through Starfield, was their lead quest guy through all of Starfield, is in a bunch of those marketing videos and stuff. And the game launches, and damn near the second that they sent out the checks for their bonuses, he leaves. And then in March, he gives this whole talk about how dysfunctional the company is. Honestly, it's kind of a Chad move. It's pretty baller. I'm honestly pretty impressed. But what he talks about in this little presentation speech, I guess, is fascinating because he goes through the whole process of their whole development stack and pipeline. It's fascinating. And we're going to do, I think, a whole like extended segment where we're going to look at all of this together and we're going to break it down because I want to compare this talk that he gave and pretty much side by side compare it to the CDPR talk where they talked about reinventing their studio after Cyberpunk and all the differences they made with that. Really interesting. So the point of all of this is that this is way more telling to me than anything that you could get from like a little interview Todd gave where he's patting himself on the back the whole time. But it does get some hardcore fans nervous / excited for what's coming next, which is the Elder Scrolls 6. Cal, Bethesda Beyond, who somehow does not have me blocked yet. I don't know this guy. I mean, I'm used to like hardcore Bethesda fans not being too happy with me, but he posted a little thread describing what we know about the game so far. So I want to go through that, but I want to also bring to mind something for Bethesda to be aware of, which is after Starfield, I did a poll right as the game came out. And I asked the audience on the main channel, and we got about 70,000 responses. Maybe I could actually pull this up. So this is what I was talking about. So 62,000 votes. Okay. Right after Starfield launched, so this is about a year ago, I made a post, 62,000 votes, where I asked people, after Starfield, are you more or less excited for Elder Scrolls 6? And of these, only 23% of people said they were more excited. 31% said there was no change, just no effect on them. And about 30% said that they were less excited after all of that. If we go back up to the follow-up poll, 72,000 votes, I asked people the same question. I just took away one of the categories. Again, it's not scientific. I'm a YouTuber. What do you expect? But only 6% now said they were more excited. So after another 2 months of people finishing the game, going back through, like talking about it, they said they were less excited for Elder Scrolls 6. And this number for less excited had doubled from like 29% to 61. Less excited is now at 61%. And prior to that, less excited was only at 29. So pretty big spike. And I point that out because I want Bethesda to be aware of that so that they work their asses off to reinvent and to rework so that we can all enjoy Elder Scrolls 6 when it comes out with them having learned their lessons and made improvements. Okay. Having said that, let's work our way through this. Everything we know about the Elder Scrolls 6 so far. Let's see. Number 1, Bethesda announced the Elder Scrolls 6 back in 2018 with a teaser showing mountains and coastline. Most fans think that this is Hammerfell or High Rock. Well, I think we have a better idea of which one it is here in just a second. Internal docs from the FTC and Microsoft case indicate that the Elder Scrolls 6 is not expected to launch until at least 2026 and will be exclusive to Xbox and PC platforms, but this may change considering the new multi-plat plans. The other piece of this too is that like the documents that they were looking at were primarily from pre-Starfield's launch, pre all of this other stuff with their new directions. Adding PlayStation into the mix for building it and optimizing it is going to add time. And then also Bethesda historically takes longer than they are projected to make games. So if they originally were thinking 2026 at the earliest, that probably means 2027 to 2028 is when we actually see it. And in terms of dev timelines, if it took them however many years, I mean, they did Fallout 4 in 2015, Fallout 76 in 2018, and then they did Starfield in 2023. With all that, we're looking probably 5-year dev cycles. That lines up. This next bit is wholesome. Bethesda has confirmed Shirley Curry, aka Skyrim Grandma, will appear in the game. They already did the scans and everything, so she will be in the game. We actually looked at her channel relatively recently, and she actually was taking a break. I wonder where she's at. I wonder if she came back, because she said she was taking a break to focus on like other things that interested her, like her quilting. I'm not joking. It's so wholesome. It's so cute. Yeah, look at this. So, oh, just a day ago, she made another video. So instead of doing daily content, she now does it more infrequently. I forget which game it was, but there was another game where like there was a fan that had cancer and passed away before the game came out, and they put a big like mural or like a monument in the game to him. It was super, super cute. Super cute. And I love that stuff. It's so wholesome. The game will utilize the Creation Engine 2, the same engine that powered Starfield, with enhancements tailored to their unique requirements. This is something that Todd's confirmed a couple times. Specifically, they are not pretending that it's going to be the Creation Engine 3. They are saying that it's going to be the Creation Engine 2, just with some improvements. Because in my opinion, pretty much the whole thing with Starfield was that they kind of came in here and they could do the same thing with the Elder Scrolls 6 and just come in here and write a 3 right here, and all the fanboys will be like, oh, so it's totally new. But they're apparently not going to do that. They're going to keep it as Creation Engine 2 and just make a couple little reworks. So if you're expecting it to be like a massive leap forward, no. Part of the reason reportedly that they don't want to do a big overhaul of the engine is because they want to get this game out sooner than later. And if they do a big engine overhaul trying to push it to like Creation Engine 3 levels, that's going to take them another few years, and we're probably not getting it till 2030. So they're just going to take their time and develop those improvements over a longer period of time, but focus right now on building the game first and foremost. They've renewed the also Redguard trademark in 2021, adding to the speculation that Hammerfell could be the setting. That's what makes sense to me. So it looks like Hammerfell, because why else would they... Like specifically this trademark, I remember reading the story about it. It has specific tidbits in it about like new merchandise, new t-shirts, and like all sorts of stuff like that. So to me, it would suggest that they're ready for it to be utilized across the gamut of their different product offerings. It's not like they're just doing upkeep on the trademark. It looks like they're actually preparing to do new stuff with it. They go on. Bethesda aims for the Elder Scrolls 6 to have a multi-decade impact, much like Skyrim, I would imagine so, which still boasts 20 million monthly users over a decade after release. Replayability, modding support, and world depth remain their top priorities. And fun fact, during the FTC hearings, a Microsoft lawyer claimed the Elder Scrolls 6 could release in 2026, which they kind of already talked about. I don't think they had secret information. I think that they're just going off of what the idea was at the time. I still think probably 2027 is most likely, with a PlayStation launch maybe in 2028, but we'll see. If they're going to do major overhauls to like studio structure and layouts and stuff, that could delay it or it could shrink the time down. I don't think they're going to reinvent themselves or do anything crazy, but we'll see. But that's literally all we know about it. Dragon Ray Gaming, I tried to tag this, but I can't add bookmarks because I don't know who this is, but Dragon Ray is upset with Luke and blocked me preemptively. Maybe it was the Starfield stuff. What do we know about Elder Scrolls 6? Nothing. Nothing. We know nothing. Here's the deal. It's all very much up in the air. We've heard talks where like Todd said that every game they try to think of what their like the theme is going to be. What, like, how are they going to make it bigger? What's the big thing going to be for the game? Every time that they do that, they kind of shift and try to figure out what they're going to do. And I remember, I wish I could remember what specific talk it was, but it was like, you know, in Oblivion, it was all about the Radiant AI stuff, right? The Radiant AI. And then they were like, in Skyrim, how do you take it bigger? It's all going to be dragons. Dragons. You can fight them. They're all over the world. They're part of the living, breathing world. Super cool. And Todd was like, how do we level this up? What do we want to do? And he said he had an idea back when they were making Skyrim for what that next step would be, but they didn't have the technology to do it. And he was like, now we do, so we can do it. So if I'm trying to think, okay, Todd likes to build games that take what was there before in their last game and add little pieces to it. How do you apply some of the stuff they built for Starfield into Elder Scrolls? How does all that work? I think there's going to be a much more expansive system for like building your keep. I think it's going to be a thing where you like have people that work for you. You assign them to, you go brew potions, you go over here, you're going to be the blacksmith. I think there's going to be systems like that. I think they're going to do things like, you know, expanding the base building out. So it's actually building a castle basically. I think they're going to maybe explore with shipbuilding in the form of like actual ships, but it could also just be reworked into like building out your own keep and your own dungeons and stuff like that. I think that stuff is going to play a big role in the game, like a lot. So I think it's going to shift much more into the themes of escapism. I think they want this world to feel like it's yours to inhabit. And I think that that is going to be the primary goal. So I would expect if you are somebody that does not like the style of like of base building we got in Fallout 4 and Starfield and stuff like that, I think you're probably going to find it frustrating how much they double down on it. But I think that that is the natural step for BGS, and I'll put money on it right now. That's where they're going. I think that's their priority, is all of the base stuff. I think that's their big push. Modders are for that Skyrim housing. Yeah, well, do you guys remember the game jams? Every year, BGS does this thing where they have what's called a game jam. And this is a clip of the one from 2011. They don't typically release these publicly. This was part of like a documentary.
One of the coolest I remember we call a game jam. Everybody,
or I think it was Todd's GDC talk.
On the team gets to do whatever they want for a week. And they can imagine. But you have to put it in Skyrim. Okay? One of the coolest things about being in one of those studios within Bethesda and ZeniMax is every year, every December, all the studios get together and we have a big company-wide meeting and everybody shows their stuff for the year. So, you know, getting to see what id's working on all this stuff early is great. Since we had just finished Skyrim, this year we showed the game jam stuff we did. So I'm going to show you the sizzle video from the game jam that we did internally, that we showed internally. That's what this video was from. So I need to, everyone on the team says I have to preface this with, this is all experiments that we did in a week. How much of this stuff sees the light of day? To be determined. Could it be in a future DLC? We don't know. Could it be various parts of it just be released for free? We don't know. But I wanted to show it to you because it gives you a good look at what do we do? We let people run wild and just see what they do for a week.
You're going to notice what's particularly amazing about this is just how much like stuff is here, how varied it is. There's a ton of really, really clever and interesting stuff that was built by the team within a week. It's wild. Put it in the game. That's going to be seasonal foliage. Somebody did this in a week. Flow-based water. I think that's something that would come out like 5 years later in the anniversary edition. Spears. (2011) BGS actually like was pretty efficient. They could do some crazy stuff pretty quickly, you know? Guards relight darkened areas. All sorts of enhanced stealth. Paralysis runes. Dungeon enhancements like hanging structures, moving platforms. Water currents used in dungeons. Dark dungeons, you got to use magic to see in. New follower commands for combat style, training, distance, equipment, all that stuff. And it just works. Adoption is a thing. This would eventually come to the game. The home building, complete with a skeleton butler. So some of this stuff that they worked on would actually end up being full released DLC and content and stuff. It just, you know, other pieces weren't added or never came to the game, or modders took it and ran with it. But yeah, mounted combat and stuff. Dragon mounts. You can fly a dragon, control them, have them fight for you. Like, jeez, man. Connect shouts. That's funny. Very 2011. Using connect shouts. But still kind of fun, right? But the idea of Bethesda of 2024 making stuff like this is insane. Like, no, they're going to work on this for a year and you might get one improvement. Like, oh, snow footprints. That'll take them 3.5 years and it's going to be broken on half the devices it runs on. You know, back at this period, Bethesda was able to pump stuff out and they were able to do some crazy, crazy interesting stuff really quickly. And nowadays, all of these inefficiencies have destroyed the creative flow of the company, in my opinion, looking at it from the consumer's perspective. I just don't see this same level of dynamism anymore. But you can see just how much stuff they pumped out in a week. And we look at something like Shattered Space, and they spent a year on that. And there is not a single thing in that DLC that's more interesting than any one of these tidbits. Yeah, it's crazy how different the studio functions. Keep the studio small with a bigger budget. Well, so typically the budget gets bigger because the team has gotten bigger, right? Like, it's all a function of the spend and where the money's going. So if we have something like, you know, I think during Skyrim, I believe the team was about 115. So if you have 115, so we'll say that this is the employees. We have 115. And then I don't know what the average salary they were paying was, but let's just say like 60. This was 2011, so that's probably pretty generous. But salary and then time. Function of time. How many years are you paying this? Let's say 5 years. You know, if we do it this way. Let's say, let's also open up our calculator. Run the numbers. Crunch the numbers. So if we have 115 employees, average salary is $60K, and we're paying them for 5 years. Then we get, I realize it's times 1,000 because it's 60,000. 34 million. Let's round up and say the budget for this is 35 million. Manageable. If you want to make the budget bigger, you either have, like, you got to change something here. So you either are paying your employees more or you're giving them more time if you're not increasing the number of employees. So it's not as simple as like just go bigger budget, but keep the team small. It's not as simple as that. You could give them 10 years and then this is going to be 70 million, but does that actually help anything? It might not. Sometimes time is actually something that holds you back. If you've ever watched 6 Days to Air, you should. It's a really good documentary on the production process behind South Park and how they make an entire episode in 6 days. You know, they post the episode, they take a day off, and then they go back into the office the next day and they work their butts off working on the next episode. And within 6 days, they go from nothing to having an entire episode done. And one of the most notable things about it was when Matt Stone and Trey Parker, they were like, yeah, we don't have time to have writer's block. Like, we don't have time to not be creative. We have to figure it out. There's not enough time. Like, if we were making episodes over the course of a month or two, we would go back, rewrite stuff all the time, and then we'd second guess ourselves and doubt it. We'd cut stuff. Now we just don't have time. We get a lot of crap out, but we also get some really good stuff that wouldn't have gotten out otherwise. With all this, like with Bethesda, they've just seen, you know, skyrocketing employees, where now across all their studios, I don't know what they've got across all their mobile studio, like their mobile studio, BGS Dallas, all of that. But maybe now the average salary, bear in mind, is like 80. And then they're taking 4 to 5 years to make stuff. Like 500 times 80,000 times 5 years. Like, you start to see how you could hit that number pretty quickly, right? Even though these numbers didn't really increase by that much, if at all, versus time. But just scaling up the team created such an insanely high expense. So in my view, you have to really justify having that many employees, and I don't feel that they have. I feel that a lot of the stuff with Starfield shows that bigger teams are not necessarily better, but that's just my opinion. He took my thing.